Hi, folks. Got an absolutely amazing guest here today. I'm very honoured in a way to have Chris Wickland, who's known as the Vexed Vicar, and has been making quite a name for himself on YouTube with some fabulous posts. I really appreciate you coming on today. One of the recent posts that you did, I thought was very interesting about Anne Widdecombe. How do you feel about that whole situation now? Because to me, it seems like it's almost like forgotten about now.
Yeah, I feel that this whole case from start to finish is the whole thing seems very suspicious. The fact that now that the guy that's been arrested, he won't be the court case won't actually be looked at until sometime next year. So again, this situation's been kicked into the long grass, and the longer that we can just give some distance, maybe when the truth actually comes out, people will have moved on. But the reality is when Southport happened, within hours, our Prime Minister then, Keir Starmer, was all over it and saying, "I'm going to bring the full penalty of the law against these people." But when it's the other way around, it's another story entirely. And so I think this whole thing just it stinks to high heaven as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it's clear from the evidence that we have seen that has been told to the public that she was basically assassinated for her political and religious opinions.
How's it affected you personally? Because I think you were sort of fairly emotional about it because it also said something about the sort of the state of Britain at the moment.
Yeah, when I first heard that she died, that it did come as a surprise to me, and that did make me feel quite upset because obviously I've literally grown up with the lady. I'm 54, she's a lot older than I am. She's always been there in the background, and knowing that she's a faithful Christian as well has always been an encouragement to me. But then I think within hours, it soon became apparent that she didn't just die; that actually it's potentially that she'd been murdered. Um, and, the press were saying, or the police were saying, please don't jump to conclusions, don't make assumptions. And the very assumptions they kept telling us not to jump to were the very things that actually proved to be true. And that for me is a very worrying sign. We have the boogeyman, which is this far right neo-Nazi people, which don't seem to cause any violence that I'm aware of. Not denying that there probably are some far right agitators out there, but I've yet to meet one.
Mhm.
But people on the left, they are complicit and guilty often of violent crimes, inciting people to violence. And I see something quite chilling in our society right now that really concerns me going forward and how we address this. It makes me, I got given a threat the other day. Again, it was about Anne Widdecombe. And on that threat, it got sent to the police because it had rest in peace, Nigel Farage, rest in peace, Rupert Lowe. Some of the people on the left, they just seem to have this nihilistic um, insanity about them that anyone that disapproves or disagrees with them, that they must be somehow cancelled, taken out, or assassinated.
Yeah, well, where do you think that that has come from? I mean, is it from the kind of university system, or why is this sort of built up now that it is kind of like all right to assassinate someone like Charlie Kirk, and people are online celebrating the deaths?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think you're right. I think we've basically kind of like geoengineered our children from the school into the colleges, into the universities. Then these guys and ladies become CEOs of companies, and then they bring in all the DEI, inclusivity stuff. And so now it's just in every tier of society. It's in our police, it's in our politics, it's even in the church, sadly. It's in education, it's everywhere. So people are constantly being indoctrinated with this stuff. And I see there's three types of people on the left. You've got disciples who are just kind of people that kind of go along and kind of agree with the ideology. Then you've got people who are zealots who will, you can't ever change their mind. You can't reason with these people. They will justify any means possible for their cause. And then you've got the priests who are the people that actually understand what's going on. And it's the zealots that I find that are the most concerning. I've been to a lot of protest marches where we've been standing up for true justice. And there's the Antifa lot there, shouting and screaming at us like we're the neo-Nazis as well. Well, I'm not a Nazi because I'm not a socialist. I also don't have a problem with the Jewish people, but you, on the hand, are socialist and you hate the Jewish people. So, I just think that this liberal left ideology has become so entrenched that they will almost justify anything. They think people like me are so intrinsically evil that I do not deserve to be listened to. Therefore, I need to be silenced, shut up, cancelled, or potentially even killed. I just think that the times in which we're living in now is very dangerous. And the fact that most politicians don't even want to deal with it, and the fact that Anne Widdecombe's murder has just, as you say, brushed under the carpet. It should be Parliament should be out of recess. They should be dealing with this. There should be pressure being put to find the truth of what's going on here. But no one really seems to be bothered. And Andy Burnham's more interested in what picture to that promotes Manchester 10, number 10, than he is, or eating a bread roll than he is in actually dealing with the true issues that are going on in our nation right now.
Absolutely. Do you have a concern for your own safety? Because obviously you're taking a position and you're standing up for your views. Has there been any comeback, through social media or threats or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've had a few threats, and I said I had one come through yesterday, and I'm on a fatwa watch list, which is an Islamic watch list, and my friend, my Bishop Kai Dewa, you've probably heard of, he's on a fatwa hit list. He's had
Mhm.
various security companies phone him up saying you need to change your car because it's too easy to blow up. So this is the reality of where you are at now. Just speaking truth, that's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything radical. I'm just speaking truth. And that can either get you cancelled, get you in trouble, can get you prosecuted or persecuted or even taken out, which I just think is insane.
Has there been any comeback for you from the police for your views and not a knock on the door or anything like that?
Surprisingly not. I know, for example, our particular church had a lot of reports to the police, but the guy that was it was the area policeman. He watched everything we did. He was aware of what we were doing and stuff, and he said, I just immediately as soon as these things came over my desk, I just wrote it off. It's like this is nonsense. So we've had people try to get us into trouble. We've been very blessed in that the police have so far been on our side, but also the Charity Commission came after me because some comments I made on X saying that Islam was the biggest killer of Christians in the world at this moment in time, which is just true.
The
And so
fact.
I got into it's a fact. And so I got into trouble for that. That was 6 months back and forth. We had to get legal advice. Eventually, we pushed back at them and we kind of won that. And so, as a consequence of that, now I've had to come and join the CAC, which is the Confessing Anglican Church, to protect the charity and the church that I set up in the first place. And now I've had to become a limited company to now protect my assets and my house from people that would try to come after us in other ways. So, if we were to wind the clock back 50 years ago, 50 years back, I'd just be like your village priest, just going about my daily business. But now I'm some kind of far right radical heretic, which is just just bemuses me at the hour in which we're living in.
So, in your, if you don't mind me talking personally, in your personal life with your family and friends and this, that, and the other, has your political stance or caused problems in relationships and everything?
Yeah, so I'm very blessed. My wife is completely 100% with me. We walk together and all
Fantastic.
of this. And so, I don't have, and it wouldn't matter if I did, in the sense of if I did have a wife that was deeply hurt by these things and worried, then that would be problematic. But my wife is very much like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're speaking up for truth. This is what we became Christians for. We give our lives for Christ if we have to. If it means laying it down for the sake of truth, then so be it. So that's kind of like our mindset. But I know of other people that are doing this kind of work, and that's been really difficult for their marriages and difficult for their relationships because obviously it is quite fearful. And when I found out that I was on a fatwa watch list, initially it didn't really bother me, but then the reality of it starts to sink in after a
Mhm.
couple of days. It's like, this is my family, this is my wife, this is dangerous. I don't care about myself, but when it comes to your family as well being potentially under the crosshairs, well, that's a whole nother level, which, is not nice to think about. But, that's the hour in which we're living in, which again, maybe many of your viewers may or may not be surprised by this, but this is why even more so we mustn't back down to the bullies and actually stand up and speak up truth.
Absolutely. Tell us about your kind of relationship with the church and how have they reacted to your stance?
Yes. The Church of England, so the Confessing Anglican Church is an American form of the Anglican Church. I mean, those guys, they're great. They're just full
Yeah.
on, great for Jesus, speaking truth to nonsense. They're great. Whereas the Church of England, they're very liberal, very cultural Marxists in their understanding and the way they look at things. Therefore, they really don't preach the true gospel anymore. So they don't even really teach the Bible truly anymore. And so they hate me and those that stand with us, what we're doing. A lot of other churches around about me, I think they're just a bit perplexed by me because you get different types of churches on this particular issue, what's going on in our nation right now. The majority of churches want to pretend there's nothing going on. And so they just do their Sunday meetings and everything's fine. This nice little utopian Christian bubble that we come to on a Sunday. Um, and then there are other churches that think that I'm dangerous, that I'm a far right agitator, that I'm causing trouble, which I'm not. Um, and then there's other Christians that just absolutely loathe me because of some of the things that I've done. In a sense, I'm calling them out for their lack of their inactivity. So with the Henry Novak case that happened in Southampton, I think I was one of the only church leaders in the whole of the area that went to stand at that rally and speak and stuff, whereas the other churches didn't want to be involved. And then what they did do the next day was a litter pick and an interfaith event and reading poetry in front of the police station. It's like, that's not going to achieve anything. You have to stand up against what's going on here because we have two-tier justice, two-tier policing. And so some of the things that I've done has embarrassed them and I've called them out on it. And I guess they don't like me for that. But, we're Christians. We're supposed to stand up for truth against injustice. And if we can't even do that, then why are we even bothering to be here?
Has Christianity lost its way in this country, and is there a way back for it?
I believe there is a way back for Christianity. I do believe Christianity has lost its way. You look at the Methodist Church for the most part have completely lost the plot now. Moved so far away from the teachings of Scripture that I'd call them an apostate church. The Church of England, there's lots of good people in the Church of England on the ground level, but when it comes to the bishops and the archbishop, again, very, very woke and again, borderline apostate as well. So a lot of churches have gone basically the way of this liberal left kind of cultural ideology, which is a real shame. But there is a growing resurgence of people, and ironically, a lot of them are the flag wavers because they've understood the connection between their nation and Christianity. So then they're like, so, well, I don't really know much about Christianity. I can go and check it out. So they buy a Bible, they start reading it. They read about Jesus, go, all right, yeah, this makes sense. They become Christians, but this time they're not just Christians; they're Christians that are already hardwired to the importance of Christianity in their nation, and so that you would call them Christian nationalists in many respects. And so I'm starting to see that more and more and more wherever I go.
So, do you think that there's hope for this country? I mean, I tend to think that there is a sort of a group of people in this country who are sort of switched on, but a lot of the people are very apathetic and not involved politically and just kind of let it all go. We saw even in the mayor election recently, there was only 25% of voters who actually bothered to vote. So why are we so disconnected to politics in this country?
Well, I think for the last 25 years, we've basically just been told one thing whilst another thing's being done right in front of us. So we've had significant governments that have come and gone that all said they'd deal with the issue of immigration, and they never do. We were promised a Brexit, but we never really truly got it. And so various things. I think public opinion of politics is at an all-time low right now. However, that said, let's not forget in the local elections that was done recently, it was Reform Party that just completely blitzed Labour, which says something encouraging to me at least, is that there is a silent majority out there that do not want this nonsense. And so I'm hopeful through that alone that we can potentially win the next general election. I say we, I mean people on sort of centre right, because I personally feel that the next general election will really determine Britain's future forever. And I call it the last election. If left or green parties come into power in the next general election, I believe personally, and it sounds a bit grim, but Britain as a Christian nation will be gone forever and it will become a socialist Islamic nation. However, if we can turn it away from that, then we still have an uphill battle. Probably it'll take us the next 20 years to turn things around. And not to go back to the good old days, but to come back to sensible politics, encourage Christianity to flourish again in our nation, which at the moment we don't, and just try to rebuild the building blocks of our society. It has happened before. I believe it can be rebuilt again. So I am hopeful for the future, but I do know that the next general election, whenever it comes, I think is a very serious point in Britain's history about which way we go, left or right.
No, I totally agree. I think it's like you say, it's almost like the final election. Do you think that there is any hope? There was talk between sort of Rupert Lowe and Farage yesterday. Do you think there's any hope of the right uniting?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, I had Ben Habib of Advance UK. I mean, he basically dissolved that party to help
Mhm.
unite the right, and I think what he did was honourable and brave, and
Yeah.
so hats
Mhm.
off to him. And Rupert Lowe, uh, I think what he's doing is right, but it's a little bit, here's my
Mm.
five demands.
Yeah. I know it wasn't
Yeah,
it wasn't sort of negotiation, was it? No.
not really. It was like take this or leave it.
Yeah.
So at least that's a good start, and at least if we can bring the right together, that's really important. Because I tell you something now, the left they may be all over the place, but
Yes.
when it comes to uniting against the right, and
Mhm.
they can do it. And
Yeah.
I could quite easily see if Labour, say like in the next general election, say they did win but didn't get majority, there would be a left amalgamation, and they would do what needs to be done to keep the right out of power. And so I think the right need to get this sorted, and we do need to unite.
What do you think about the royalty and sort of Charles's role in the sort of in Christianity?
Yeah, I think King Charles has, and it's ironic that that's what he's named, King Charles.
Yes.
When you look at all the other Charles, um, that I think he's basically abdicated his responsibility. He he made a solemn oath, which is bound by constitutional law, which I think has been in place since 1688, something like that. So he's bound by constitutional law. This is not just an oath before God, which he may not believe in. This is an oath before God, before the nation, and constitutionally binding in law. And now he's decided that, well, I don't want to be the king of the Christian faith anymore. I want to be the king of faith. But we know which faith he's particularly wanting to stand for, which is Islam. Now, you might think, well, that's unfair because he does do things for the Jewish people and stuff, which is true. But essentially, we've got persecuted Christians going on all around the world right now. We've got a real genocide of Christians in parts of Africa. And the king, who is the defender of the faith, says absolutely nothing about it. I think he's betrayed us. I think he's betrayed the Constitution. He's betrayed our country. He's betrayed his oaths, and he's betrayed God on this particular issue.
Mhm. Absolutely, I totally agree. And what's your views on immigration? Do you think we're ever going to get it under control? And how is it going to affect the future for our children?
We have to get immigration under control. We've had more migration, both legal and illegal, into this nation in the last 25 years than in all of Britain's history as a nation. That should make you stop and ponder for a minute. And imbalancing and putting this all out of whack is the fact that we live in a multicultural society. What does that mean? It means you deny your own culture in place of a culture that's coming in. So what's happening now? Britain's in a state of cultural flux. We're losing our identity. We don't really know what it means to be British anymore. And slowly but surely, we're seeing our landscape change. Now, from a Christian point of view, the Bible is to a point pro-migration, but there are caveats. It's like if you come into the land, so in context of the book of Moses, where it's talking about the Torah, the law, if any strangers or foreigners come into your land, you're to be kind to them, but equally they must observe your customs and your laws and your ordinances so they don't dilute your culture. It's really important. God is really big on cultural identity and ethnic identity as well. The Bible also then goes on to say that if you are invaded or if you have too much migration, it's considered a curse of God and a bad thing. So biblically, the Bible's okay with migration, but it has to be controlled and it has to be in the context that they come into our culture, follow our principles, our laws, our ways. But also the Bible speaks of too much migration as being something potentially very negative and damaging to a society. And not only that, from a practical point of view, social scientists have written white papers on this subject now. For the last 25 years, we've got to see with our own eyes, does multiculturalism work? And they all concluded, no, it doesn't. It causes ghettoizing of communities, not cohesion. And also, it basically bankrupts the nation as well.
Yeah, what did you when you saw that footage the other day of the sort of invasion of Spain? What did you think about that? How alarming was that for you?
That was horrifying, right? I mean, it looked like something out of one of those, is it Z, that I can't remember which film. It's some of those zombie movies, where they just suddenly just go absolutely nuts and climb over the place. I mean, it
That's
looked
right.
really quite serious. And it did leave you with some serious questions. Did 50,000 people just wake up that morning and go, today's a good day to go to Suter? It's like, that whole thing's very suspicious. Um,
Yeah.
but not only that, it was our Labour MP. I saw one getting interviewed on GB News, and she was asked, do you think this is an invasion? Oh, no, this isn't an invasion. This is just, migration. It's like, how many, seeing as Britain was invaded by 40,000 Roman troops, okay? When
Yeah.
when is an invasion actually invasion? Is it 10,000, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60? Have 50,000 people turn up in a village or town, sorry, of about 70,000 people is an invasion, no matter which way you look at it. And they came from Morocco, which is economically doing okay. It's not a war-torn country. Therefore, why did they even come?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Now, for people watching this, some of the people may not be Christians.
Yeah.
Why should they embrace Christianity, especially now?
That's a good question, and it's a fair one. So as a man of the cloth, I'm not out to see everyone in Britain become Christians, but one of the things that I noticed about a lot of people that have come to faith is that they made the connection between Christianity and Britain's history, and therefore they liked what we would term as cultural Christianity. In other words, the benefits that come from a living, vibrant community of faith, but you yourself aren't necessarily a person of faith, but you're living in the moral structure and the laws that come out of that living, vibrant faith in the country. And so my argument is if you like that cultural Christianity, you have to at least endorse and encourage the living, vibrant community of Christianity in your nation. You can't have, because cultural Christianity is like the branches of the tree, but you can't have the branches of the tree and sit on those branches unless the tree is actually there in the first place. And so that's why I think it's important that we stand up for Christianity and defend it, because if you don't, what you'll have in its place will be socialism, humanism, and basically Islam.
So, what separates your branch of the church to the Church of England, and how could people get involved with you and join your branch?
So yeah, the Confessing Anglican Church, it's relatively new in the UK. So the point is that we now see ourselves as an alternative to the Church of England. We're going to stand up for true biblical orthodoxy rather than just going off whatever the whims of the world are right now. The downside is that we're quite small, but we are growing quickly. But if you just go to the website, which is about, if you type in Confessing Anglican Church, it'll take you to their website and it'll let you know what's in your area. And also check out Bishop Kai Dewa. He's my bishop. Feel free to email him and he can help you as well. I'm personally based in sort of Fareham Way, which is in Hampshire near Portsmouth. And we've got a couple of churches down this way, which you're welcome to come to. 10:30 service and a 2 p.m. service. And after the 2 p.m. service, we'll have a giant big meal, which feeds about 110 people. So you're more than welcome to come along and enjoy that as well.
Do you do the as Kai does the baptisms on the beach?
So we're blessed. We've got a church with our own big hole in the floor where we baptize people in
Right.
there. So yeah, we have done baptisms on the beach if people request it. But
Mhm.
often we like this Sunday coming, we got a big baptism service. So we just open up the floor, fill up the tank, and drop them in.
So, have you only a few more minutes left? Have you thought of having a career in politics yourself because you're opinionated and you have a viewpoint? Have you ever thought of standing politically?
I have thought about it, but I just in my gut, I know that actually the place where I'm at is actually more important because it means because if you get into politics, then you have to only really protect and stand by one party.
Mhm.
Whereas the position that I'm in, the Bible is my book. It's not, politics, things change and stuff. So the Bible is my book that I live by. And that means uh, that the people may be doing on the right might be doing things which might be unsavory. So I get to call those things out. People on the left get to call those things out. People doing things good, we get to encourage those things. So I have thought about it, but no, I'm happy where I am. This is where I'm supposed to be. But I believe actually being a Christian and giving a voice into the political scene at this moment, I think is quite important for people to see as well.
It's very reassuring, I think, for people because people need figures that are prepared to stand up. It's a very good thing that you have stood up. Obviously, this is a story you would have talked about quite a few times, but I think some of our viewers may not be aware of the
Yeah.
fact that you actually died for 15 minutes. Um, and it was kind of like a miracle that you survived. Just as a last thing, maybe you could give our viewers some idea of what happened and what took place.
Yeah, so I can't remember now. It's about 5, 6 years ago now. I took my kids to a trampoline park, and I just, went like a nutter, just trampolining and stuff. And then I don't remember any of this. So this is what I've been told. I then came off the trampoline saying I don't feel right, don't feel well. But I didn't realize that for a long time I had something wrong, but I didn't know that there was something wrong. You just kind of just live with things, don't you? Not realize it is actually an issue. And basically, the long and short of it is that I went into cardiac arrest, and then had these guys that were with me who were at this place, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, the guy's dying," and then my heart stopped. So they were working on me doing CPR for about 15, 20 minutes. The ambulance was getting there as quick as they could. They gave me 4 electric shocks, and it was only on the fourth shock that I came back. When I got to hospital, they put me into a induced coma, and even then, my body was like writhing around, which meant that I had serious brain damage
Mhm.
because of what happens. And they had to put me on a cold mat to keep, and all these fans to keep me cool, even an induced coma. And then when they eventually started to wake me up to do these what they call the Glasgow tests, I failed all the tests, and they basically said to my wife, if he comes out alive, he'll probably be drinking out of a straw for the rest of his life. He's going to be severely brain damaged. And so my wife put out a prayer request, and it went viral. It just went all
Mhm.
over the world. Hundreds of thousands of Christians prayed for me. So I died on the Friday. They put me into a reduced coma when they brought me back. But then I woke up on a Sunday, and
Mhm.
when I came out of that coma, I was completely well and in my right mind, which was a miracle. Of course, then the BBC and the press got hold of that.
Mhm.
Pastor dies on Friday, rises on Sunday. They just couldn't help themselves.
No.
And so it kind of became a bit of a national story as well. But yeah, that's essentially what happened there. Then they fixed the problem a couple of years later, and now I'm right as rain, which is good. Praise God.
Well, it's a fantastic story, but do you put down your recovery to the kind of power of prayer, what your wife did, but she put it out everywhere?
Yeah, so a little bit of everything really. So credit's due where credit's due. The
Yeah.
guys that kept my heart going for 20 minutes until the ambulance arrived, and then all those guys did. But you see, where the NHS can't deal with is brain damage. They can't fix that.
Mm.
And so that's for me is where the power of prayer came in as well, and brought me back to my rightful mind. And I'm forever thankful to all those Christians that did that, and thankful to all those people that did what they did as well. So yeah.
A final thing now, a lot of people out there may be really suffering mentally. It's been very difficult over the last few years for people, just, financially, mentally. As a man of God, have you got any words that might give them sort of hope for the future?
Yeah, so this is actually proven scientifically as well that simple things like praying can really help with your mental health.
Mhm.
Because we are, whether you believe this or not, if you do believe in God, it's like we have been designed to have a relationship with our Creator. So when you just start praying, it immediately you're sharing your problems with one that can deal with your problems. Other things, it's good to try and get yourself even maybe into a church. Apparently, when you do congregational singing, that's really good for your mental health and all this kind of stuff. So just getting into a community of Christians is really helpful as well. So if I was to I'd say this, I'd go pray, read your Bible, read your New Testament, stick in the Gospels, get to know about Jesus, and try and get to a local church and just sing and make some friends, and that will really help you with your mental health. If you've got mental health and you're trying to do this alone, try and get some people around you as well.
Well, that's the whole thing because the church is like a community, isn't it? So that you do
Yes,
get
that's
that
right.
friend and support. So, just before we go, just tell us again where people can follow you online.
Yeah, so you can see me if you type in Vexed Vicar on YouTube, VEXED Vicar, you'll see a lot of my programs come up there, and also I'm on X at Rev Wickland.
Fantastic. Why are you the vexed vicar? Is that because you're concerned about everything?
Uh, I just woke up one day and I just had this epiphany. It's like I knew that if I did a walk and talk, had a bit of a moan, and called it something like the Angry Vicar, that it would really work. And I felt my wife said, don't call it Angry Vicar, call it Vexed Vicar. And it was like, that's it. That's what I've got to call it. And little did I know that that's what I'll be known as now, probably till the day I die.
Yeah. So, folks, do follow this man. He's very brave. He stands up for what he believes in, and these are the type of people that we need to follow in this country. So, look, Chris, thank you so much for joining me and giving me the time because I know you're a busy man. So, lots of luck to you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be on. Thanks very much, Liam.